Hello there. They took us into the European Union behind closed doors, and they're about to do it again. Last week, the country's political and corporate power brokers got together in the splendour of the Ditchley Park retreat and decided that they wanted to drive the UK closer to the European Union. But the only real question for them is how do they do it without upsetting the great unwashed, us. The day after the 2016 vote to leave was made, the anti-Brexit forces mobilised and have done all they can to stymie Brexit ever since. And now they're planning to follow in Ted Heath's footsteps and take us back stealthily into the undemocratic EU that is lining up to become a federal state ruled from Brussels. And their main strategy is to use the economic fallout from the pandemic and Putin's invasion of Ukraine as cover. They're already trying to fool the public into thinking that our economic problems are unique to Brexit UK and that everything is sunny uplands in the European Union, when nothing could be further from the truth. Almost no media outlet will admit that inflation is as bad in the EU as it is in the UK, and that our employment and unemployment figures are much better than most countries under the Brussels yoke. In short, they lie by omission. They omit to give you the global picture, especially where strikes and the like across the EU are concerned. They would have you believe that inflation, healthcare problems and strikes only occur in Brexit Britain. But consider this. If things were actually far better within the EU, then we would see that news plastered across every screen and billboard in the UK, wouldn't we? We would be fully informed of their debt to GDP and employment statistics, but we're not. They would tell us how much better it is there, instead of trying to fool you into thinking things are worse here. But it isn't. They are trying to stop you knowing what is happening outside the UK in case you get to realise things are not all hunky-dory elsewhere. Then consider the UK economy. It's on its knees, we hear. We must rejoin the EU to recover, the rejoiner blob Wales. But we've just avoided a recession, and as I said, our employment and unemployment rates are better than most. In fact, we have a shortage of labour. Those are not the signs of a failing economy. But we also have a high level of economic inactivity, something that a change in government policy with regard to benefits and pension threshold laws could quickly change. Then we'd have more labour available, without the rejoiners demanding we get back into the EU and allow freedom of movement of cheap labour again. But they want you to hanker for the greener pastures that you cannot and are not allowed to see. They do things like point at UK car production figures falling since 2016, while failing to point out Germany is having similar problems. Now, the Ramona rejoiner establishment is the same establishment that wants us all corralled into 15-minute neighbourhoods, controlled by central bank digital currencies and without access to freedom-giving personal transport. These are the rich and powerful few that want you owning nothing, living in sanitised anodyne neighbourhoods, watching government-manufactured news and having no heritage or links to anything but the state. They are not your friends. No, they view themselves as your betters, those who are destined to lord it over you and make sure you live the correct lives the correct way. Look at the avid pro-EU Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, for example. He is totally anti-Brexit and pressing ahead as fast as he can with his part as chairman of the 40 Cities programme of rebuilding our capital into a camera and sensor-controlled nightmare. And look at how other cities and towns are queuing up to follow suit. They're already blocking roads off from cars that motorists have paid for many times over. And did the majority vote for this? No, they voted to leave the EU. They voted Brexiteer MEPs into the EU Parliament, and they voted in a Tory party with an 80-seat majority to finish the job. Democracy says one thing, but the blob demands another. The blob has transformed the democratic act of universal suffrage, the vote, into a mere symbolic and ceremonial irrelevance. As that other arch-Remoaner, Peter Mandelson, is often quoted as saying, we are now entering the post-democratic age. And that means you no longer have a say and you no longer matter, other than as a worker drone that will take the rewards they are allowed to take for their efforts. And personal aspiration will be squashed for the greater good. The blob that wants these controlled living areas where everyone's lives are constantly monitored from what they earn to what they do to what they eat and what they buy will not tolerate an outlier of freedom such as Brexit UK. And that is why they will follow in Ted Heath's footsteps, telling you that every bit of UK sovereignty they give away is good for you and means nothing, when in actual fact it means everything. The big corporates want the world shaped for them, not for you. And governments like that approach. It's easier for them, and much more lucrative on a personal level as well. And apart from when you're at work, governments want you sat at home buying stuff over the web and watching wholesome government-prepared digital output. Now, one of the big drivers to all of this is to distance you from the decision-making process, with the main aim being to put the distance of at least 10 pitchforks between you, the ruled, and them, the rulers.
Don't worry about these UFOs. Jeremy Corbyn has released a statement saying, I have arranged peace talks with my friends from Alpha Centauri and their delegation of 60-foot brain-eating genocidal space worms. I have also sent a letter to their illustrious leader, Slurp Slurp You're Dead, whom I have befriended, so the invasion and ensuing harvesting of mankind has been called off. Oh, thank you, Jeremy. Well done. Oh, hang on, what's this? Oh, breaking news. I'm afraid to say the peace talks didn't go as to plan, and Jeremy Corbyn was last seen floating towards a black hole at the edge of our galaxy, clutching the only copy of his best-selling autobiography. Thank you for your service, Jeremy. And speaking of the left, Angela Rayner and her AirPods Pro and iPad that she bought using taxpayers' money. I couldn't care less. I genuinely could not care less what politicians spend money on, just as long as we get value from them, individually. I couldn't care less if politicians spend £1,000 a day on Colombia's finest and then end up in some dodgy word salad again, some dodgy establishment filled with villains like the Houses of Parliament, just as long as they represent the people and the values of the British people, but they don't. So the only problem I have with our politicians is they are not representing us. Ultimately, political parties should eventually be banned, and political state collectivism, or should I say tribalism, needs to be banned under a new constitutional edict type thingy. The trouble is we need a political party to emerge that will ban political parties, should it ever enter government. A real turkey voting for Christmas. I may have been born an Englishman, but I will die a Welshman. You see, I grew up in a South Wales mining town and saw the futility of working class people voting Labour. Even after consecutive Labour MPs and governments, the quality of people's lives continued to fall, and still does. And the inequality reversal of red flag waivers, that reversal they so desperately wanted, only became worse under Labour because of the systemic, almost gangster-like corruption that is and always has been baked into the Labour Party. And from the council level all the way up to MPs. Anyone who wears that red rosette. Yes, the Tories are just as bad as are all political parties that fill their ranks with nepotists and those that seek self-advancement via the political system. But unfortunately, the people are easy to control. The past 3 years should have taught you that. So the people will never band together as the people. They are like sheep that need to be led and are not too fussy about who the shepherd is, as long as the journey from pasture to slaughterhouse, as long as that journey's got a nice view, the people don't care. See you later. We've got another one coming up later.